All right, I want to welcome you all to today's live. It's a great live. We're going to be discussing the four biggest fears to building a real estate business. Now, before I start with this, I want to clarify why I always say real estate business as opposed to being a real estate investor. Everybody knows about being a real estate investor. A real estate investor is someone that buys a couple of properties. They may buy one, two, three properties a year. They usually rent them out or they fix and flip them. So that's just what they do as a normal business. If you're just checking in, just say hi so I know who's in here so we can get the conversation going. I like to kind of know who I'm talking to. So everybody talks about being a real estate investor. If you actually look at what it takes to be successful with real estate, you need to look, hey Gerald, nice to see you. You need to look at being an investor as just that. An investor is someone who passively, it's almost like it gives off the wrong vibe. Being an investor is somebody who passively does it in a past sense. And the way I train, the way I try to get people to understand real estate. Dawn, nice to see you. I am a real estate business owner, and it is better to be a real estate business owner for a lot of reasons. One of the biggest reasons is because you look at it as a business. You treat it as a business. You treat your finances that deal with your real estate as a business. You don't treat it as a side hustle, because once you get this stuff together, this can very easily replace your income. I talk to people all the time. They get on the phone with me and they say, I'd like to make $15,000, $20,000 a month. And when you get Oscar, nice to meet you. Good. I know this is your first time. Nice to see you. Every time someone starts with their real estate investing, they look at it as a side hustle and not an ongoing business. But when you look at it a bit as a business, your fundamentals change of how you handle it, your finances. As I was saying, a lot of people get on and I ask them what's their goal, and they say something like $5,000 or $10,000 a month in cash flow. That's a great goal, but let me tell you that when you get this business going and you scale it, you're very easily going to hit $80,000 and $90,000 a month income, profit, revenue for your business. So you might spend. I don't like to give specifics, but I'll say it like this: you might make 80,000, 90,000. Raymond, nice to see you. Welcome in. You might make $80,000, $90,000 a month, and you can do that consistently. And you can put great money aside, you can build and all these other things, but you have to treat it as a business, not as a real estate investor. Real estate investors, in my opinion, don't always make a lot of money until they get into some of the really expensive stuff. This is the way to start a business and do it from Nani, nice to see you. Aloha. So this is the way to get into the business. So let's jump into it. This is the way you want to get started, and you want to look at it as a business, and that's why I always reference it as a business and not being an investor. So let's get into it. The biggest fears of failure for a new real estate investor. Now, this applies to new real estate investors, but it also applies to seasoned real estate investors, because a lot of seasoned investors, they consider themselves seasoned because they did one thing, and they might have been a real estate landlord for years and years and years, and they consider themselves a seasoned investor. But that doesn't really make you a seasoned investor, because you're not really growing your business. You're not really doing something that is expanding your territory, your presence. So here's some of the biggest reasons that anybody, I don't want to say just new investors because that's not actually accurate, anybody would struggle with getting into real estate. The first one is, I don't know how to invest or where to start. That is a very common problem that a lot of people say. I don't know how to invest and where to start. So that's one of the first concerns. The other is, I don't want to mess up my credit or my money. A lot of people get into real estate and they're scared that they're going to mess their own finances before they got into real estate up, and they don't want to do that. So that's very important. That's a very big fear for a lot of people, especially if you have some money or credit. Once you get past the whole want to get some money, having some money and protecting it is your second biggest thing to overcome. The third is, I don't want to deal with tenants. If you're a landlord, you probably heard, or if you're not a landlord, you probably heard tenant horror stories. And if you've got friends that are into real estate and they're landlords, it will freak you out if you see some of these horror stories. So I don't want to deal with tenants. And the fourth one is, I don't have the credit or the money, so what can I do? And that's very common, especially with people that are new. They feel that they can't afford it. I'll tell you a quick story about this. When I first started out, I was a real estate investor. I was not a business owner. And when I got to a point where I needed to hire help, when I needed to hire people, it was very scary for me, because in my in my view, I could not see myself being responsible for someone's income. If you raise your hand or just say yeah, if you get it, if the thought of hiring someone is scary to you, having someone on your payroll that you have to make their payroll every week or every month or however you do your payroll, that can be very scary, and it's something that most people don't want to deal with. But I can tell you, on the other side of that, it's not bad. Once you get to a certain point, that's why you look at it as a business. You put your financials in place, you put your controls in place, and once you have those in place, the sky's the limit. I have 9 people that are working for us right now, and they do a great job, and I cannot see how we could operate without those 9 people. All of these PowerPoints that you see and everything else, that's done by somebody else because they put them together for me. They get my talking points and they put them together for me. They just make everything easier. You see me and you talk to me online, and that's just because the way we're building our group, I'm the main primary contact, and I like to get to know it before I assign other people to it. But hiring people is not scary. So we'll talk about that in a second, though. So the first one, fear. I don't know how to invest. Where do I start? This is a lot of times the newbie issue, and here's how I would address that. The first thing you need to do before you do anything else is start with your goals. A lot of people watch a YouTube video, they watch some kind of program, and it gets them all excited, and they think about what they want to do, but they never think about their goals. Now, you might say, I don't know what my goals are. I don't know where to start. There's an excellent exercise that I always reference about this. And that exercise is to, if you want to figure out your goals, figure out what you don't want. Use opposites to figure it out. So figure out what you don't want and what's the worst thing to you. Then that will help you set up your goals. So you might say something like, I definitely don't want to deal with tenants, or I definitely don't want to fix on houses myself, or I don't want to drive around all day looking for abandoned houses, or anything else. I don't want to lose my money. Anything that you look at setting it as what you don't want, and then you turn around and on that same piece of paper, write the opposite of that, and that is a goal for you. So it helps you figure out your goals. But the reason you want to figure out your goals is because once you have figured out what you don't want, then you know what you want, then you can start to look at strategies that reach that set of goals, or at least no strategy is going to reach every single goal, but they will reach a lot of the goals and make it so that you can easily pick the right strategy. One of the biggest fails that I see with investors, and I'm guilty of it, so everything I say is something that I've dealt with, is when you choose the wrong strategy and you go at it with all your might, with all your force. You just know this is going to work, and you chose the wrong strategy. So when you get to the success level of that strategy, you look around and it's nowhere you want to be. And that's happened to me, and it can be very frustrating. So you want to be careful of that, because that's not what you want. You want to pick the goal first, then the strategy that matches most of that goal. I used to do a thing where when I was picking out my strategy, I started to look at, if this was completely successful, what would that look like, and would I be happy with where I'm at? And the reason that's difficult is because a lot of times when you're looking at something like that, you're only going to see the rose-colored part of it. If I had 100 rentals, it would be great because I've got all this money coming in. You're not going to look at managing 100 rentals or the downside of managing 100 rentals until you're in the middle of it. So figure out what you don't want. That will help you figure out what you want. The last 2 things I'm going to say is, once you pick a strategy, get help. Now, I have a coaching program. I talk about the coaching program to people when they ask, but let me be clear. I very much believe in coaching programs. I'm in a coaching program right now. I constantly do coaching programs because once you get to a certain level, there's always something where you can refine or improve, or you can better yourself. And coaching, if you pick the right coaching program, it's going to help you with speed and accuracy. Those are the 2 things a coaching program should do: speed and accuracy. It speeds you along so you don't have to make a lot of the mistakes that people do when they start off doing whatever it is. And then at the same time, it's going to give you accuracy because you avoid a lot of the mistakes that are common with getting into that, whatever you're learning in coaching. And it gives you reassurance. There's nothing worse than doing something that no one else has done, and you don't know if you're doing it right. You just have to go on blind intuition and hope. But if you've got coaching and mentorship, then you get reassurance like, hey, this works. Somebody's done it before. When you have a problem, they can say, hey, I've dealt with that before. This is what you need to do. So that's the first fear. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to invest. Find help, pick out your goals, pick out what you're doing, and that's what you do. So fear number 2, I don't want to mess up my money or my credit. This is a very common issue, especially people that have been in a career. They've put some savings together. They've, worked hard to keep their credit in order, and they don't want to mess up their money. They don't want to mess up their livelihood or how they live. Just let me know, is this making sense so far, these fears? Is anybody in here facing any of these fears that I mentioned so far? Are these things that you feel that you have to deal with? Just let me know in the comments. So fear number 2, I don't want to mess up my money or my credit. How do we look at that? Because this is the fear of everyone, going into foreclosure and having the foreclosure on your credit, all that kind of stuff. There are only 2 ways to lose money in real estate. And anybody that tells you different is either not sure or not telling you the truth. But in my experience, there are 2 ways that you can lose money in real estate. The first way is write a big check. If you write a big check, there's a risk that you will lose that big check. So if you pay cash for a house, there's a chance you're going to lose that house. Now, you can protect yourself from that, but at the same time, that's the number 1 way to lose money in real estate. When you write a big check, you risk losing that check. The second way is to sign on for a ton of long-term debt. I made this mistake years ago. Luckily, it didn't destroy me, but it was close. I signed on for a ton of long-term debt. When I started buying rental properties, I got up to a point where I had 30 plus rental properties. I had several $1 million in debt. And I thought to myself, everything in my mind told me, hey, you're doing good. You got millions of dollars in real estate, but you also have millions of dollars in debt. And that's another way to risk it, because when you sign yourself to long-term debt, then you could be faced with foreclosure, bankruptcy, all those things that just go along with it. If you can avoid these 2 actions, you can almost guarantee you won't lose money in real estate. Real estate is an asset. And as long as you know what you're doing with the asset, then you're usually in pretty good shape as long as you follow that path. Here's where people mess up. They buy a property, they make their strategy based off of the deal. That's the dangerous part of real estate. Has anybody ever did that? Have you ever made your strategy based off the deal? I'll give you an example of what this looks like. You're looking for houses. You come across this great house. It's an abandoned house. And your plan was, I'm going to buy a house and rent it out. You then say, you find this great house that's abandoned, that's empty, and you call the owner, and the owner wants to sell. They want to sell. That's great. Now you got a place, it's abandoned, the owner wants to sell. You do the numbers, and for what they want, it doesn't make sense as a rental right now because it needs a lot of work and this, that, and the other. But between the price they want for it and the work it needs, it doesn't make sense. So what do? You don't want to give up the deal, so you change your strategy. You say, okay, this one I won't rent. I'll fix and flip it, and then when I fix and flip it, then I'll make my money. Then you start on that. So you buy this place, and you're going to fix and flip it. Then you come across another deal. This deal is a commercial building or a larger property or something else. It's something that it makes sense. It's a great deal. You know it's a great deal. You're not even that good, and you know it's a great deal. But it doesn't make sense as a fix and flip. It makes sense as to split it up and be an Airbnb, or split it up and do something. It's something else. When you do all of these strategies, you are setting yourself up for failure, because it's like, you ever heard that saying, what's it, the jack of all trades, master of none, or something like that? That's what happens. You don't know what issues you're going to have, and every strategy has issues. You need to focus on one strategy so that you can choose that one strategy, deal with the problems that are going to be the same problems that come up. And once you learn to deal with that one strategy, those aren't even problems. They're just the things that happen in that strategy. So you're comfortable with it. I've been doing quick turn real estate for years, and the problems that come up are the same problems that I had 2 or 3 years ago. The only difference is I'm comfortable with it because I can reference what I did before and how I resolved the problem. Now, sometimes what I did before may not work, but now I've only got to tweak it a little bit to make it work. and then I can move on. That is much easier to deal with than I got to figure out a whole new set of problems. Now I need a contractor that I wasn't expecting to get, and it's just a whole new set of problems that you don't want to deal with. And jumping around strategies is the best way to get in trouble. Your strategy to beat this is to invest for short turnarounds and with low leverage. The reason, because you build the knowledge base of the pitfalls. Yes, exactly. Now you build a database, a knowledge base of that strategy. And as long as that strategy meets your goals, then you're good, because you'll figure it out through that strategy and you'll be better the second time around. Think about it like this. Who's going to be better? The guy that's done it, or the person that's done it one time and they keep doing a new thing every one time, or the person that's done the same thing 37 times? The person that's done the same thing 37 times has the battle scars, the battle wounds to make it through and be successful with it. So it just makes sense to stay on the same path. Now, I talk about this. Your strategy to beat this is to invest for short turnaround and with low leverage. What does that mean? Low leverage means when you buy a property, you're buying it at a discounted price and it's got low leverage. The reason being is because, let's say I've got a house. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say I buy a house for $60,000 and it's worth $100,000. I always like to use round numbers because I can do the math quick. So it's worth $100,000. I buy it at a discount at $60,000. Let's say I put it on the market at 105, and the interest rates have shot up. Jeremy Powell or whoever has gone crazy and raised the interest rates up, and the house does not sell. I'm competing with the other remodeled, completely renovated houses in that area. My property is going to be priced probably lower than theirs, but the key to me being successful is I have low leverage. I only owe $60,000, or have $60,000 or even less if I've got my down payment in. I've got $60,000 into this deal. I can lower my price. I can systematically lower it $2,000, $3,000 every couple of weeks until it sells. And here's the thing. What happens a lot of times with that is when you keep lowering the price, people look at it and then they say, oh, that's too high. And then when you lower it to a certain point, when you hit that golden number, what ends up happening is 2 or 3 people say, oh, that's the right price, I'll buy it. Now you get 3 offers on that same property, but now you've got 3 offers to choose from. So you can play those offers and say, well, I'd love to work with you, but I've got 2 other offers that are a little bit higher. Can you come up a little bit more? And you end up getting into a battle of that price, and you get a number that's higher than you lowered the number to. So let's say I had a house that was $105,000 listed. I take it down to $97,000. And then when I take it down to 95, everybody runs at it. But when they take it down to 95, they come back, and I'm able to use that multiple people came at the offer or came for the price, and I can raise it back up to 102, 103. So I get my number. I just had to come into it from the back side as opposed to it coming from the front side. I hope that makes sense for you. Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense, if you understand what I mean by low leverage deals and how you can't get stuck with a low leverage deal because you have the greatest control, which is lowering the price, if that makes sense. So the shorter time you invest or your investment is out, the less risky it usually is. Now, I say that with a grain of salt because, yes, it is less risky in most cases, but if you have a plan to get rid of this property, your money is in the exit. That's what I'll say. Your money is in the exit. And the sooner you plan on getting the exit or getting out of this property, the sooner you're going to get your cash out, you're going to get your profit, and you can go on to do the next thing. Long-term rental, that's a generational wealth thing. That's a long-term kind of setup. You can do that, but you need to have cash reserves, hefty cash reserves to get into that business. Thank you. You need to have the hefty cash reserves to get into that business so that it makes sense for you. So I don't suggest that, especially if you're starting off. So let's get through these because I'm kind of going at a certain pace. Fear number 3, I don't want to deal with tenants. I don't know if this is anybody in here, but once you get into this business, you won't want to deal with tenants. I'm telling you, people don't respect your stuff. No one is going to respect your stuff like you do. And tenants are no exception. I always say, because I post a lot on TikTok and social media, and I always talk about landlord horror stories. I have plenty of landlord horror stories. If you look at some of my posts on social media, I have 10,000, 50,000 views when I talk about horror stories. Everybody loves to watch a car accident. The thing about this is some people get onto social media and they'll tell me, I haven't had those kind of problems. You're just not a good landlord. And I say, oh, how long have you been a landlord? I've been a landlord 8 months. Okay, well, you just haven't been a landlord long enough. I'm guaranteeing you, I've been a landlord for 20 something years. I guarantee you, you will have problems like this. You just haven't had a problem yet. And some people say, well, I've been a landlord 20 years and never had a problem. That is usually when they have a house and the rent is so low that nobody's going to screw it up. So they're not making any real money, but they've got a low rent and no problems. Yeah, I guess you can do business that way if you want, but I'm here for my goal. At the end of the day, I say it on all of these videos, get to the check. That is the goal. So I just wanted to touch on how I feel when a tenant relationship goes bad. It's very stressful when a tenant relationship goes bad. As a landlord, I remember when I was younger and a landlord and I had my children with me when I would go to a building, sometimes one of the houses. And I remember tenants would come out and they would be talking to me, and we were on good standards, we were on good standing. So they would say, hey, Mr. Ville, how you doing? How are the kids? And everything. And oh, your kids are so cute and this, that, and the other. And my wife used to love that. Aisha used to love talking to people about, the kids and what's going on. And I was always hesitant because I said, I don't know if this person, you're only friends with the tenant until the first of the month comes up. And that proved true because those same tenants that were like, hey, Mr. Ville, love you and everything else, when they couldn't pay rent, they were literally like, F you, F those kids, just the more they knew about my life, the more they were negative about my life. And nobody wants that. So it's a horrible feeling when a relationship goes bad with the landlord and the tenant. Landlording in general is a long-term play, and it is very active. Anybody on any social media, YouTube, any book, anything you see that says being a landlord is passive investments, run. They are lying. I'm looking at you in the camera as much seriousness as I can. That is not true. Being a landlord is a very active business. Even if you have a lot of property and you hire property managers, you then have to manage your property managers. If you've ever had to manage property managers, then you know it is not a passive investment. You can be passive. You can sit back and not worry about anything and just let your property manager run the building. Let me tell you what will happen. You'll get a bill one month for a repair, and it'll be a bill for $300. And you'll say, that's not that bad. Next month, you'll get another bill for $1,000, and you'll say, what's going on? The next month, you'll get a bill for 3 tenants moved out, and you owe $1,500. It will fall apart at your fingertips because they need to be managed, and I cannot stress that well enough. Now, the other thing is there are other better ways to invest in real estate, especially if starting out. I don't suggest becoming a landlord until you have cash reserves, significant cash reserves. And even then, I don't believe single family homes are a good asset class to become a long-term landlord in. But that's a video for another day. I'll talk about that later. Fear number 4, I don't have credit or money, so what can I do? Now, this might encompass a lot of people, but there's a very simple answer to this. You don't need money or credit to start in real estate. Now, I know you've heard that. I know you've been online and you've probably heard that story. Let me tell you the other side of that statement. It will be slower and less profitable and more legwork for you. When you buy properties with no equity, you are limited in what you can do. The reason you can buy properties with no money or no credit is basically because you're going to find properties a lot of times that don't have any equity. They don't have any cash in them, and the other person can't figure out what to do with it. So they're willing to let it go so that they can then go do something else and you'll be stuck with it. That is not ideal for you, and it's going to be a lot of work. I've done it. I've done subject to. I was very good at it, and it still sucked. There are easier ways to make money than no credit and no money real estate. I don't suggest those, especially starting out. My suggestion is to take the steps to fix your credit first. If I had to choose between which one I care about, having money in the bank or credit, I would start with credit first because it takes longer. It does not take long to get money, and I'll explain why. You can save money and start there. That's the easiest thing. If you don't do a no money, no credit real estate, you won't get in trouble with that. But the other part is if you need money, you can always get a partner. Now, what does that look like to get a partner? Getting a partner simply means that you go out and meet people that have money and you talk about what you're going to do. But you have to have some of the stuff I talked about. You have to have a strategy. You have to know exactly how you're going to find deals, how you're going to, everything you need to do, you can do, but you need to get a partner. Nothing wrong with that. No problems. Find someone that brings more to the table than legwork because you are providing the legwork. They need to have the credit or the money. I prefer them to at least just have the money and you can have good credit and you can work together. If you do no money down, no money financing, it will frustrate you for the amount of work you have to do and the amount of money you make. You will be very disappointed, in my opinion. There are some people that do this and make great money. I don't know very many of them, and everyone that I've talked to that does this kind of strategy, a lot of times they quit before they make anything significant and they're stuck with a bad debt house. And a lot of times you have to deal with the previous owner because you took over their payment and now you don't know what to do, and you're not going to mess up your credit. You're going to mess up their credit worse than it already is. So just be careful with this because there's a lot to it. So what is on the other side of fear? I'm almost done with this. On the other side of these fears, when you stop telling yourself why you can't do this stuff, on the other side of it is a capable business is capable of replacing your income. So all of you that are out there that work a job 9 to 5, you make good money or even great money, you can easily replace that income with a business, a real estate business. You can get on the other side and make great money. You also, on the other side of fear, is a strategy that can lead to generational wealth using one of America's oldest vehicles for that, commercial real estate. Once you build up some cash and you build up some experience and negotiation experience and other things, you can get into commercial real estate. You can invest in commercial real estate in groups, which is very low risk. You can do all kinds of things, but you have to start now. You don't start later. You don't start 6 years from now because you're just missing out on 6 years. You will also get a freedom that allows you to build a business that is not just you. A business that is just you is a job. When COVID happened, and I'm going to say this, but don't take I hope I don't offend anyone. When COVID happened, there were all these people that were like, I'm starting a business because they were getting money from the government or whatever they were doing. I don't know. And they were starting businesses, but they did all the work themselves. They worked for themselves. That's a job. That's a job. And you have no boss except your customers, which your customers can be crazy. So you don't want to trade a job for a job that doesn't guarantee your income and you still got to show up every day. That's not the ideal thing. Now, this is the important thing to me on the other side of fear. You will have the ability to create opportunity for others around you by the way of employment, opportunity, and career growth. And I'm going to tell you a quick story about this. I have a gentleman that works for me in our business, and he had a rough life. He had a rough life, and he came to us. He had no skills. He wanted to learn. He just wanted a job, really. And we took him in, we taught him how to do the stuff we needed to do in his job. And he's been great. He's been excellent. We were able to help him. So he got employment. So that helped him help his family. He was able to get married. He now has 2 kids. It created opportunity for him because we bought a property that he was interested in and he was able to buy that property from us. And now he owns a home. This is somebody who before did not believe they would ever own a home. And now he owns a home. And he's got career growth because he's grown in his career. And now he's moving up the scale in our business to move up to management and things like that. All of this was created for him because we did what we did and got on the other side of fear. So if you're scared about this, if you're fearful, I want to encourage you. There's a lot on the other side of fear. You just have to make the commitment. Now, finally, last thing I want to touch on is if you need help building a business or building something like this, if this interests you, then DM me or hit me on Messenger for a one-on-one conversation about where you are and what this will look like for you. I do what's called a financing audit, where we'll look at where you're at. We'll help you see if you can qualify for larger single lending source financing. So we deal with commercial lenders. We can show you if you qualify for that going through our process. And that's going to be a linchpin of the process that we use. Even if we can't directly help you, we have a lot of resources that we can share to help you grow. So that's a lot that we can do to help you all grow, help you better yourself. If you're not there yet, there's no problem, but start with something. Start with this call if that makes sense for you. I'll be happy to talk with you. I'm patient and I try to be very understanding and accommodating to help people. So I hope this has been helpful to you all. I hope you've learned something. If you've learned something or gained anything from this, give me a thumbs up. Just let me know. Sharon, I saw your other thumbs up, so this will be a new thumbs up for this. If this whole training has been helpful, I hope it has. If you, like I said, if you want help, then by all means, reach out to me. I'll be happy to sit down and talk with you and talk about what, getting help looks like and everything else. Until next time, I wish you guys the best. I hope everything is well. And if you're wanting the replay of this, it will be available tomorrow. So I will let you know. Just let me know in the comments that you want the replay, and I'll be happy to get you a copy of the replay. So until next time, I wish you all the best. And as always, happy hunting. Talk to you guys later.